you will need to have an identity in place for your users. So let me share my screen and let me know once you start seeing it. Do you see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Good to go.
Okay, great. So this is what we'll be talking about, and this will really help you, especially if you have anything to do with Google Workspace administration. Maybe you are a super admin or delegated admin who would be administering Google Workspace, or maybe you have like a part of the Google Workspace administration. Maybe you take care of billing or procurement. It would help you to lay out the foundational architecture for Google Workspace and other Google services that you might be using by understanding consumer accounts and work accounts. What are the differences between them? How can you find out if you have some consumer accounts created within your organization? And how can you convert those consumer accounts to work accounts so that you can push policies and make your organization's security posture better? And some watch points which you should keep in mind as a Google Workspace admin. And finally, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in chat and we'll be happy to take those at the end of the session. So with that, let's understand that there are two ways to create Google accounts if you need to use or if you plan to use Google services. Regardless of the services you would be using, you will always need a Google identity. First way that most of us know is an unmanaged or consumer account. That's what we call them, because when you join Google as a user or as a consumer, you are signing up with Google's consumer terms of services. And the way you create those accounts is, you will simply go to Google and say, need a new Google account. What you need to understand here is that along with signing up for gmail.com email address, there is an option where you can select that you already own an email and you would better use that email. So if you do that, for example, if you look at the screenshot here, now you are creating a Google consumer account, but with your corporate email address. As soon as you put that, we will send a 6-digit verification code to ensure that you own that email. And once you come back and provide that ownership verification, you will end up with an unmanaged or consumer account, but with your corporate email address. Another way is to create managed work accounts, which means these will be the accounts which will be managed by your Google Workspace administrator. And for that, there is a journey that you will be taking, or you might have already taken that, is you will first register your domain with us, indicating that you would like to use Google services with that domain. And then we will ask you to verify the domain ownership just to ensure that that domain actually belongs to you. And then once you provide or once you take these 2 steps, then you will get an access to an admin console where you can create managed users, where you can push policies and security, etc. Once you get done with this, you will get this kind of admin console where you will be able to create users on your own company domain, and you can then put these users into different organizational units and groups so that you can create different policies based on the user subset. Now, let's talk about the differences between unmanaged and managed accounts, and which one should you prefer in which case. For people on this call, especially Workspace admins, it will be managed work accounts all the time. So for example, anybody who has email ownership should be able to create an unmanaged account. So we send the 6-digit verification code that you need to provide us back, and you can create an email. But to create a managed account, you should be assigned an administrator role within your Google Workspace domain. Data ownership belongs to that specific individual in case if it's a consumer account, because that person signed up with Google's consumer terms of services. However, with the work account or with the managed account, it's the data ownership will belong to the organization. So In case if somebody created, let's say, an account with your corporate email address and is using that for business services, maybe running Google Ads or Google Analytics or Google Cloud Platform, it's not a good idea, because if that person leaves the organization, you cannot enforce that person to leave the data to the organization, because it's a consumer account, and that person has the ownership. Now it's his choice or her choice to whether leave the data to the organization or take it away. Security controls are available in both. However, in unmanaged accounts, they are just available. You cannot enforce them. It's that end user choice whether they want to enroll into those security controls or not. However, in the managed side, you can push, you can say whenever users log into our Google signed applications, they will need to do the MFA to log in. In terms of cost, Google consumer accounts or unmanaged accounts are available for free. For the managed ones, as you know, there are multiple license or subscription types. Some are free and some are paid. So based on this, recommendation that we provide is, in case if it has to do with your personal life, maybe it's your personal photographs, personal data storage, it's okay to use unmanaged or consumer account. But regardless of the size of your organization, even if you're a one-man business, but you will be using this one account to manage or operate your business, you should always go with managed or work accounts. So how might then your question would be, if every time you should go with the managed or work accounts, why your users might have created consumer accounts for business use. And usually it's because of lack of awareness. Maybe you just wanted to use Google Ads for your organization, or maybe you wanted to use Google Analytics for your organization. You went to Google Ads or Analytics and signed up with your corporate email address, but as a consumer Google account. So as an admin, then you need to understand how would it impact you, and most importantly, how can you reverse this? How can you convert those unmanaged accounts to managed accounts, so that you can push your security policies and have data ownership on those accounts and the data that might belong to those accounts. So this is what we call a conflicting account, and essentially a conflicting account is or would take place when your user has created a Google account, a Google consumer account with his or her corporate email address, and now you are signing up for Google services as an organization, and you're trying to create that person's account in Google infrastructure as a work account. And at that time, we will say this user already has an account inside Google's infrastructure. You cannot have two accounts in Google infrastructure with the same email address. So that will be a conflict at this time. So now let's talk about the conflict resolution options. When you go to your Google Admin Console, of course, you need to first register your domain with us. You need to verify that you own that domain. And once you do that, if you go to create new user and you type in the email address that is already created in Google infrastructure, but as a consumer account, we will show you this message saying this account is already created inside Google infrastructure. So now you have two options, and let's talk about both of these options in details. And this is pretty important for you to understand these two options, because if you do this wrong, then the reverse is a bit complicated. So option number one is, because you have verified your domain, you have registered your domain ownership with us, you will override, or you will have rights to override the existing account that exists in Google as a consumer account. So if you want, at this time, when you go to this screen, you can choose a second option which says create this user inside our org. If you do that, you will be able to override, and you can claim that specific user. For example, some conflict user at my domain in this case. And as soon as you do that, the consumer user who used to own this account, his email or her email will be changed to this email, as you see here, with some percentage and at gtempaccount.com. Next time when this person logs in, he or she will see a message saying, your organization has signed up for Google Enterprise. So at this time, they have claimed your email address because they have permissions to override. They own this domain. At this time, you have two choices. You can either sign up for a Gmail account for this, or you can convert that to some other Google account, maybe with your Yahoo email or something else. Now, this we don't recommend this option, because if you do that, then there is no way for you to bring the data that this account might have inside your organization. You have just created a new account with that email address from clean state. Whatever data that this account had in the consumer side, that will belong to still that account, and you would have no way to bring the data from this consumer account to work account. So instead, we recommend option number 2, which you see here in the screenshot, which says email existing user a transfer request. And as within your admin console, you should be able to, number 1, see how many users and which users have created consumer accounts in your domain. Maybe we can quickly share the screen and show you a quick demonstration of that too. So if I go to my admin console here, if I go to users, under users, if you click on more options and go to transfer tool for unmanaged users, you will see all the users who have created consumer account with your corporate email address. So you would be able to add the filter by request status to see to whom or to which users you have sent the transfer request, or who have accepted or rejected, etc. So with this option, what you're essentially doing is, instead of creating their user straight away and bypassing an option to transfer the data from consumer to work account, here you are sending them a transfer account request, which means when they will receive an email which will say your organization has moved to Google Enterprise, and you already have a consumer account created with that same email address, and now your organization is requesting that you should convert your consumer account to work account. Of course, they have signed up with Google's consumer account terms of service, so you cannot enforce them. It's their choice whether they want to accept that request or to decline it. If they accept it, then there will be 2 things happening. Number 1, their work account will be created automatically in your Google Workspace admin console. You will be able to see that. And number 2, whatever data they had in their Google consumer account, maybe they had some Google Drive files or some Google Calendar events, or maybe some YouTube or analytics or AdWords access that they might have, they would be coming with that transfer data request too. Okay, any questions so far? So Willie, are there any questions so far?
Yes. Two questions. Are we? Let's wait to the end. Let's wait to the end. I think that's better. Yeah.
Okay. So now your conflicting account resolution journey would look like this. Number 1, you will of course need to register your domain to Google. And once you do the registration, we will ask you to verify. There are multiple options provided to verify your domain ownership. For example, you can do an entry in your DNS to do that ownership, or you can upload an HTML file, etc. And once you do that, you should be able to go to your users under directory, and then under more options, you can go to transfer tool. And here you should be able to see the whole list of all the consumer accounts that are created with your corporate email address. If you're a large organization, don't be surprised to see thousands of users here. So you can click on bulk update managed users, and here you should be able to download the users' details in CSV. And then, especially if you're a large organization, you might have your own tools to do outreach to your users. If that's the case, there is a user invitation API. If you just search in Google, it might come up. With the user invitation API, you should be able to do things in bulk, like figure out how many and which users are created as consumer accounts. Number two, how would you send requests in bulk while leveraging the API? And you can also check the status via the API, etc. Okay, just a second. And then once you find the conflicting accounts, you can send the transfer request. If you have, you can either leverage the Google Admin Console to send the transfer request and track the status. But in case if you're a large organization and you have some, procedures in place, you may also leverage user invitation API for this. And finally, based on either the user decision, whether the user accepts your invite or rejects your invite, work account will be created. In case if a user declines the invite, you will be able to see that status. And if that's the case, you can go ahead and create work accounts. And especially when you're signing up as a new organization to Google Enterprise, you should be able to create users for your whole organization straight away, except these consumer accounts. So it's only a subset of users that might have these conflicting or consumer accounts. You need to outreach to them and then decide whether you're going to create their account straight away or invite them so that they can bring in their data to their work accounts. Now, there are a few watch points which might be applicable, especially if you're a medium to large organization and are using things like Google Cloud Directory Sync, or maybe you're leveraging third-party identity provider like Okta or Azure AD or Ping, etc. That most of these third-party IDPs, including the Google Cloud Directory Sync, they're using Directory API that we offer. And Directory API does not yet detect whether the account that you're trying to create is a conflict or consumer account or not. So let's say you signed up for Google Workspace and you have thousands of users. If you use the Google Cloud Directory Sync, or if you use a third-party identity provider like Okta, you will go ahead and create users for all of those existing users that you have. If you do that, then even if somebody out of those users had a consumer account, you have kind of overridden that, and now they are two separate accounts. The consumer account went to that user who created the consumer account. That email address would change to Temp account. You claimed the corporate email, let's say user@yourdomain.com, but now you don't have any option to transfer the data. So ideally, what you should do in this case is, number one, either use the user invitation API or the admin console transfer tool to, number one, find the conflicting accounts. You will need to register your domain, and then you need to verify that domain ownership, and then finally you should have super admin permission to leverage the transfer tool. Once you do that, once you find the conflicting accounts, then step number two, I think, should be to do the outreach internally or do a survey where, let's say, you come up with 1,000 conflicting accounts. You will reach out to these 1,000 users asking, I understand you created a Google consumer account with this email address, and we wanted to ask you if you have any corporate data inside your consumer account that might belong to business, so we can send you a transfer request. If the user comes back saying, no, it has been used for my personal life and there is nothing to be transferred, you can go ahead and create that user straight away, either directly or via IDP. But for the users who might come back saying, yes, we signed up as a consumer account, but we have been using this account for business purposes. So for those users, you must exclude them in your IDP, maybe by doing a group-based membership, or in the same case in Google Cloud Directory Sync, so that you can create rest of your users, but not the users who have consumer accounts. And then for these consumer accounts, you should either leverage the admin console bulk CSV option or the user invitation API to send the transfer request, so that as soon as they accept the request, these users will be created, and most importantly, their business data that was residing in their consumer account will also be brought back to your organization. Okay, so that was a quick overview. I know I've been covering it pretty fast, but if you're managing Google Workspace org, it's very important to understand the difference between consumer and work account, and why you should always consider creating work accounts, and you should always keep looking for consumer accounts that might have been created with your corporate email address. Maybe make it a regular practice, like once a month or maybe once in 2 months, so that those consumer accounts shouldn't be used to manage your business data, because the data ownership will belong to the consumer account, and you won't be able to push the security policies, and it will be at the user side to decide whether these policies should be leveraged or not. So if you have any questions, would be happy to take them now.
Thank you, Goldie. We have one or two questions. We have 2 questions that came through the chat. The first one is, will we ever get SU functionality for accounts so we don't have to manage multiple users or licenses for admins while maintaining proper separation of duties?
Just a second. Where is it yet? Sorry. In the chat?
Yeah, it's in the chat. Here, I'll put it in the chat so it's at the bottom. This one's from Jason.
Will we ever get SU functionality for accounts so we don't have to manage multiple user licenses for admins?
Basically, yeah,
You mean
admin with cloud identity free doesn't have access to all services, and thereby cannot actually admin all of the services.
Yep.
Yeah, so basically it's, can you get privilege elevation as a super admin without having to always be logged in as super admin, because you shouldn't do that? Or can we get specific user types that are super admins that don't have mail, calendar, and all that active as a user, but can still administer those services?
Okay, I understand, Jason. Thank you for the question. Great question, and this is indeed a best practice. So Google offers some multiple subscriptions, and one of them is cloud identity free. It doesn't cost you anything. You can maybe create a separate organizational unit and come up with your own naming pattern. It might be, jason.bradford.admin@yourdomain.com. Put those users in that organizational unit, assign them cloud identity free license so that you're not incurring any cost there, and then assign admin permissions to that user and turn off all the services. So now when Jason is logging at Jason at his domain.com, he is logging in as a user. And if you need to log in as an admin, you will need to sign up or logging in with your admin account, where you have MFA with security key enforced, maybe context aware access policy applied, and then all the applications are turned off. Yeah, that might be considered as a super admin or admin best practices. If you just Google it, or maybe Willie and I will put that after the presentation, there was a support article that we published about best practices for Google admin accounts, and it's one of the practices there that you should keep them separate, like the regular user account and admin account.
Right, but if you disable the service, then as the admin, they cannot administer those services because the access to the settings are not available. So I already tried doing the cloud identity as super admin, and it's non-functional because you still have to have super admin on another account to be able to administer the services that you don't have access to with cloud admin free. So there isn't a good solution for this other than you buy 2 seats for one person and just have them use 2 separate accounts. And that doesn't support proper separation because a lot of companies don't want to pay for that. And the super admin account is fully functional as a regular user. So people tend to just use that, which is not best practices. So if you all created a super admin user that didn't have functional email and calendar and all that, but could still fully manage those services, that would enforce proper separation of access.
Okay, I understand. I'm just curious to know why you want to disable the services on that admin account.
So if they're disabled, then there's not a good reason to charge for the admin account, because I think you shouldn't have to pay for 2 accounts for a single human. And B, that would alleviate any concerns on the Google side of people abusing that and giving admin accounts that don't cost anything to people who shouldn't have them.
Okay, understood. Yeah, today Google Cloud Identity Free, I think that comes with Drive and others. It's just that Gmail is not there if I recall correctly, but I
Right.
understand your use case. So Willie and I will take it as a feature request and we'll submit it for a product in consideration.
Awesome. It's actually already submitted as a feature request. I did that like a
Okay.
year ago.
Yeah, we'll be able to plus it internally.
Sweet. Thanks.
If
Okay.
anyone else has any questions, feel free to hop in. That was the only one that came in. Thank you, Jason, for asking.
Yeah. And I see the question about restricting it, which I expected because, the best way to avoid these consumer accounts is to restrict them so that, your users won't be able to create it. Let me share my screen again to show this one. So if there are a couple of ways for you to restrict consumer account creation so that it doesn't happen once you do the initial cleanup. Option number 1 might be to proactively put everybody in your directory inside Google, maybe leverage free Google Cloud Identity accounts if required. And once you proactively provision all the users, and if any of these users will try to create a new account, they will see an error saying that account already exists. However, in this option, you will need to keep managing it every time. So as soon as the new user joins your organization, you need to make sure that you provision that user inside Google directory so that that user cannot then create a consumer account. Another option may be to block the verification email. So what happens is, as you saw the consumer account creation flow, we send a 6 digits code to that user's corporate email address, which will be delivered based on your MX records. So if your organization is on Google Workspace and your MX are pointing to Google Mail servers, you are all covered. You don't need to do anything to stop that. But in case if you're leveraging Google Cloud Platform and on the email side you're using Office 365 or anything else than Google Workspace, then we will deliver that 6 digits code based on your MX records. So what you can do is maybe create a policy on your server, which will look for a few things, such as this email came from noreply@google.com, and email body and subject is this. And if it contains a regex, which will catch the 6 digits random code, then do not deliver that specific email to user, so that user can't take that 6 digits code and verify that this email belongs to him or her. And this might be another option. Personally, I would say you should consider the second one because it's like one-time configuration and it's easy to manage. So even if you have new employees joining in, you don't need to keep on provisioning their users every time proactively inside Google. Once you create the block verification email rule, it's like once for all. Cost in terms of proactively provision, if you leverage Cloud Identity Free, it's free. But if you might need more licenses, there may be a cost, but with the block verification email, it's available for free. And then there is less probability of error because you just configure it. And then whenever Google changes any of the email metadata, which is sent with the 6-digit code, you might need to tweak your email rule. Otherwise, it's like set it up once and that is it. So this is how you can restrict consumer account creation.
Great. Any other questions while we have Goldie?
Can superadmin disable the option to create a personal account using a work account? Yes, Ahmed, we just discussed this. So there are two options: proactively provision all your users, or create a rule on your email server, which will look for the email which we send with the 6 digits verification code, and do not send that email to the user. Okay. I recommend that routing rule is detailed on the event page afterwards. So if you, maybe I can quickly share that. If you Google it, restrict consumer account, I think I might have a video which shows step-by-step, especially if you're running any other email server. I'm just pinging in the chat, so you may leverage that video for step-by-step instructions. Yeah, I'm just going through the questions. Some are not related to this session, so I'm skipping those. Is there a way to remove the Gtemp accounts on Google Drive files and folders? Certainly, I mean, if you're running Google Enterprise or Enterprise Plus, you get access to investigation center or investigation where you can run your investigations saying show me all the drive files which are shared with this temp account, and then within your admin console you should be able to revoke their access. You may also leverage Google Drive API to do that on scale. Reversing of Gtemp account is not available at scale, but it is certainly possible. Sometimes, maybe you are not aware, and as an admin, you went ahead and created or overrided that user, and now you created the user with this corporate email address, but that consumer account is renamed to Gtemp account. And now you need to reverse it so that you can bring the data from consumer account to work account. It is possible, but it's manual. It's like one-to-one where that end user, the consumer account user, plus you as a Workspace admin will need to work together to make it done, but it's not scalable. Like it's one-to-one. There is no API for this. And if you search reversing Gtemp account on Google, I think I might have a video on that too. Can you migrate XYZ to ABC? Okay, that was the answer, I think.
Yeah, it was Yogesh asked.
Hey, hi there. It's Yogesh here. Are you able to hear me well?
Yes.
Yeah, I have just created a scenario here that I am right now dealing with. So maybe I just shortly say like there are two companies are using they are using Google Workspace already, right? So like the ABC company acquires XYZ. Now I wanted to add a XYZ domain under ABC without losing the data. So like is it any migration tool are there, or maybe I can do it very easily as like they're adding a domain in the ad using admin panels automatically it will move all the data over here. I hope you get my question.
Yes, I understood. Let me share my screen about this too. So There are a few options for merging the tenants where you have, one organization already registered in one place, and then you're trying to bring that entity inside your primary tenant as a, for example, secondary domain. It's certainly possible with or without data migration. It's a bit complicated process. Now, we recently launched this professional services organization offering, which we call Entity Merge. So maybe if you have a partner in place, or if you have a Google assigned, just reach out to them and see if you want to explore that offering, where we will take care of merging that those entities. It's a paid offering. In case if you plan to do it by yourself fashion, then this slide might help. Where the thing is, in case if you need to bring a domain from one place to another, you cannot do that before deleting that domain from its original source. So, and if you delete that, then there might be some downtime. And to avoid that, you might need to bring maybe a MX forwarder in place. As you see on the screen, there are some steps here. If you need, just feel free to take a screenshot. This way you can prefer to do that on Friday evening and have a contact established with Google support just in case if needed. But you should be able to do that without any downtime with this approach.
Yeah, thank you. But do you have some kind of a link for this so I can just use that?
Yeah, I'll put that mind map or the flow chart in today's presentation recap somewhere.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Goldie.
Yep. Okay, any other question there?
I think that's it. If anyone else has a question or wants to unmute and ask a final question, come on. Well, you can go ahead and unmute yourself. Feel free to ask.
Hi, Goldie. Thanks for the session. I maybe missed one part of it. For let's imagine a scenario where someone created a personal account using work account, and the super admin accepted that. Okay, so I think you said that, but I missed it anyway. Just to confirm, after accepting this account to be managed by the super admin from the work, so does the organization pay for that? Is it considered an account created by the super admin from the console?
Yes. So my understanding is that your case is you have sent a transfer request to a consumer account, and then once that person accepts that request, his or her account will be automatically created inside Google Admin Console as a work account. Would you be paying to Google in that case? And that really depends on your licensing settings. In case if there is an auto licensing enabled, where you have created a policy saying, whenever I create a new account, automatically assign Google Workspace Enterprise Plus license to that member. If that's the case, then you will be paying for that license, yes. In case, and ideally you should, because let's say if somebody has data about Google Drive, let's say 20 or 30 gigabytes of data in their personal consumer account. When you create their work account via the transfer request, their work account should have those capabilities, which might come with the license that you assign.
How about education fundamentals, which is for free for education?
In case if it's educational use case, it's the same thing. You won't need to pay, or you will pay based on, that user will be consuming the license based on your license settings. Now, whether you pay or you pay with the discount, that really depends on your subscription. For education, I think it's free, and based on the license type, you might have some discounts, etc.
Okay, understood. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Romain, you're up next. free to go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation. I just have a specific use case because for some customers, I create like a free account for them just to share few documents. So I don't need them to have email, agenda, or whatever. So that's why I use like the cloud-free identity to create those accounts. And my problem is this account is created with my own domain. So when one of my employees create a new document in a shared drive, by default, for some shared drive, shared drive, the sharing of the new document is for all the domain. And I want to prevent my customer free account, I would say, to have access to the newly created documents. What is the best settings or the best practice to maybe it's not like target audience is not used for that, but what will be the best strategy to isolate, I would say, some few accounts on the domain, but to have access only for specific documents?
Yeah, there is an offering which is called Drive Trust Rules. Maybe I'll put some details when Willie and I share the recap. You may consider Drive Trust Rules where you can go pretty granular. You can say this group or this organizational unit members can only share documents with these groups or these domains or these users, etc.
Okay. But I need like an external tools to do it.
It's an internal functionality offered by Google. It depends on which subscription you are on and whether you would have to upgrade to access that functionality. But yeah, Drive Trust Rules should be the way to go here.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll take a look to
You're
it.
welcome.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Anyone else? Any questions? Feel free to raise your hand or unmute yourself and ask away. Cool. Well, if not, then thank you, Goldie, for presenting. Thank you all for taking the time for joining. We will have our next session in November. We're going to take a break in October and focus on Next. That session will be around, I'm blanking, I'm sorry, Goldie.
Yeah, Google Workspace frontline workers.
Frontline workers, yes. So look forward to that. We'll post within the community sometime in November. We'll also post the recap along with a survey. So if you can give us some feedback about what you thought about the session and upcoming sessions. And thank you again, Goldie, and thank you everyone for joining the call.
Yep. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for joining.